With me now, the New York Times' Peter Baker and Politico's Eugene Daniels, both MSNBC political analysts. Some great writing by both of you and in your various publications today. Peter, let me start with, along with that new tweet mentioning E. Jean Carroll, there's also the Washington Post reporting today Trump told donors he would crush pro-Palestinian protests and deport demonstrators. Look, it's the kind of rhetoric that hasn't hurt him in the past, as you and I both know. But many voters will tell you either it's actually what they like about him or that it's just talk, that's Donald Trump, he doesn't mean it. Is there any reason to believe that this year, with all the attention on his legal woes, it'll be any different?
Well, we haven't seen that so far, obviously. Now, the legal woes are an X factor. Not that the trial has changed anything. I don't think you see much movement in the polls as a result of the trial, but a verdict might, right? If he does get, either a hung jury or an acquittal, he will trumpet that to the high heavens as an example, as a proof that he was exonerated, that this is all a witch hunt, this is all political, and that will solidify his base in a pretty strong way, presumably. If he gets a guilty verdict, it may not make that big a difference because a lot of this is baked into the system already. But on the other hand, there are at least some Republicans, according to polls, who would say, well, I like Trump. I would support him otherwise, but a convicted felon is maybe just a step too far. It doesn't have to be a lot, but even if a handful of Republicans in the right precincts in the right states change their mind as a result, it could change the dynamics. We don't know that. That's an X factor we can't really predict. But that's the import of this week.
But it comes against the backdrop, Eugene, as you and your team report in Politico Playbook. It's a coin toss between these two candidates. So you've got Trump's campaign leaning into his willingness to go deep into enemy territory. Deep Blue, New York City last week, Deep Blue, D.C. this weekend, where he was booed at the Libertarian Convention. While the Biden campaign response is, if Trump wants to spend its time competing in states where they're going to lose by 15 points, by all means, they're more than welcome to do that. Do you think, Eugene, that is a mistake by Trump, or does it not matter where he is? Because whatever he says, his controversial comments get reported.
Yeah, I mean, Trump has never really focused on a ground game. That's never been a huge part of how he runs his presidential campaigns. It's not going to be how he runs this one at all. I think what they're trying to show by going into a place like the Bronx and having a big crowd, and it was a big crowd, right? Like, you have to give them that. It was a large crowd. They're trying to say, like, he can play anywhere. He's, like you said, he's not scared to go into enemy, quote unquote, enemy territory and speak to whomever might need him. And it's not as far as it usually presidential candidates will say, I want to be a president for all people. It's like they're trying to show it but not say it, because that is not really something that Donald Trump is ever going to say. But it is, I mean, if he were able to win New York or even the Bronx, the district around the Bronx, that will be a remaking of the map that none of us have been prepared for, and that will change American politics. So it's very, very unlikely to happen. So that's something that people should keep in mind. But this is what the Biden campaign kind of wants them to do, because they, I talked to an advisor yesterday who said, this is a campaign that doesn't have a lot of money and that they're not planning correctly. So you can see that by where they're going. Meanwhile, you have President Biden going out and looking, in their eyes, presidential. And that is the center point of this election this re-election bid for the Biden camp, is going out, showing that President Biden is doing the job, that he does the job, and then using that as a contrast with what we're going to see this week with some kind of verdict from President Trump's case. And also, him going to the Bronx and bringing rappers up as if that's the only way to get black voters interested in you.
Peter, your colleague at the Times wrote that the Biden camp is hoping that once the race revolves more around Trump, voters will remember all the reasons they sent him packing. And you and I have talked about it before. You just mentioned it. Nobody really knows what the impact, for example, of a guilty verdict would be. We have an idea from polls, but who knows? Especially 5-6 months from now, how voters will be feeling. But I wonder if you have a sense from the Biden campaign, do they think that there is a huge difference between a guilty and a not guilty verdict, in this sense that there are people who believe actually a guilty verdict will fire up his base even more? will actually work to his advantage. Everybody has an idea, but what's Team Biden thinking right now?
Well, I think Team Biden understands that a guilty verdict may or may not help, but that an acquittal or a hung jury definitely does not help, right? In other words, that they don't want Trump to have the argument that he was somehow unfairly prosecuted, and they know that he will take anything other than a guilty verdict as evidence of that. So they're not counting on a guilty verdict changing everything necessarily. And we're right. This is not the most significant of the 4 cases he's been charged in. And we're not going to see, it looks like, a trial in any of the other 3 cases this year. So a lot of voters have already discounted the facts here, saying, OK, hush money and falsifying business papers, if he's found guilty of that, may or may not mean that much to most voters, because they've already sort of factored that in. But I think that they're counting on reminding voters who he is. The Biden team theory is that many voters out there, especially younger voters, are still not convinced that this is the choice that they have. They may not be happy about Biden versus Trump, but that's the choice. And that this verdict this week, and especially the debate on June 27th, will make very clear to voters, yeah, this is it. This may not be the choice you want, but this is the choice you have. And therefore, of these two, however unhappy you are with President Biden, the Biden camp is going to make the argument that Trump is much, much worse, and that the verdict in theory could play into that.
Yeah, it's interesting, Eugene, that President Biden has multiple foreign trips in June. And I think, sort of traditionally, you would say, well, that's less time campaigning domestically. That's less time to focus on and talk about domestic issues, which we know are a big driver in this campaign. But then you have the debate, as Peter rightfully points out, on June 27th. Is that, I don't want to say is that everything, but is that the main focus right now? That if there's going to be a game changer in a race that's a toss-up, at least at this point, June 27th is it?
I think that's probably right. One of the things that we've seen in debate history is that unless something goes wildly wrong, they don't move voters. Voters don't stay there, right? Like you will see the winner of the debate may see a bump, but it doesn't always change the debate. And really, the thing that the President Biden and his team are going to have to counteract is kind of the bad luck of presidents typically doing pretty badly in their first debate, right? And that's something that they definitely don't want as they're going into the summer, into the Republican convention, into the Democratic convention coming up just a month after that. And so, they're going to be doing all of that work. But you mentioned those foreign trips. It's another example of them trying to prove to the American people, one, that President Biden wants to keep his promises of shoring up democracy and being the beacon of hope and democracy to the rest of the world, and that he's going to do that while he's also working on campaigning. There's also a part of that where, President Biden has had to tell our allies that everything's going to be okay, right? In their words, that don't worry, we care about democracy no matter what our domestic politics say. But June 27th for the American people is going to give them a chance to see these two men go head to head once again. And this is the third time that they will have debated. But a lot of, as Peter was saying, a lot of this is baked in, right? I think, there's only so many voters that are going to be moved by watching these two men get up and let's be honest, yell at each other for 90 minutes. But at the end of the day, it's part of the process, and it's something that's important to the way that we do this. But how many voters are going to be moved is probably not that thing.